when he is not secluded in his European underground shelter and eschewing menacing nuclear threat to the globe, President Vladimir Putin leads an impressively vibrant life that could make many contemporary autocrats envious. It is accurate to say that he has not constructed a gilded monument in his likeness, nor has he proclaimed himself a divine being like some of his more idiosyncratic counterparts in Asia. Nevertheless, even without these particular displays, Putin remains among the most affluent leaders globally. Until just a few days ago, Vladimir Putin held the status of a true celebrity. He was veiled in secrecy and admired by countless people across the globe. However, that all changed when his true nature emerged, portraying him as an unpredictable and irrational individual, prepared to push the world into chaos if his desires are not fulfilled. Whether he was portrayed riding a horse without a shirt, taking a dip in a river, engaging in hockey, or even figuratively battling a bear, the Russian leader projected an aura of power, raw strength, and an oddly magnetic aura of fear. Undoubtedly, a remarkable individual like him experiences days of opulence, extravagant expenditures, and naturally a considerable amount of business dealings and responsibilities. While one might be inclined to imagine President Putin's mornings involving vodka shots and confrontations with dissidents, as well as wrestling bears, reality paints a more mundane picture. On days without international engagements, Russia's leader tends to remain in bed until around noon. This might offer some insight into how he maintains his formidable presence, even approaching the age of 70. His breakfast selection is decidedly unexciting: an omelette, a serving of fresh fruit juice, porridge, and occasionally some cottage cheese for a touch of variety. It seems even his impressive abs demand their fair share of protein. However, don't mistake the simplicity of his breakfast for thriftiness. Every item that graces Putin's plate is sourced from local farms that are under the ownership of the leader of the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Kirill. Furthermore, these ingredients are prepared in Putin's personal kitchen by a skilled and handsomely compensated chef. As you might have anticipated, akin to numerous past Russian leaders, Putin harbors a pervasive fear of potential poisoning, a concern that, given his position, is not entirely unfounded. This propensity naturally renders the Russian president a discerning and cautious diner. He consistently insists on having his personal chef accompany him on his international journeys. Needless to say, Putin's culinary specialist ranks among his closest associates and is generally compensated for his unwavering loyalty and undoubtedly for the delectable porridge he expertly prepares. Nevertheless, this does not imply that the president dismisses all delectable cuisine during diplomatic excursions. Prior to Putin partaking in any edibles, they must first pass through the meticulous scrutiny of Russia's secret services. As a former KGB agent, Putin is acutely aware of how swiftly situations can sour if he lets his guard down. Curiously, the Russian president categorically abstains from consuming milk. It remains undisclosed whether this stems from a distaste for the flavor or merely an aversion to cows, perhaps on par with his aversion to American imperialists. Following his morning meal, Putin indulges in a cup of coffee that has not been tainted with Novichok, all within the opulent confines of his expansive palace located on the outskirts of Moscow. Putin's adeptness at leading a lavish lifestyle is unmistakable. His estate, Novo Ogaryovo, is replete with opulent features, including an indoor heated pool, a sauna, compact cold water plunge pools, luxurious furnishings, and sumptuous decor. While bearing the weighty responsibilities of leading Russia, Putin's foremost concern remains his personal well-being. Thus, following his nutritious morning meal, he dedicates a substantial 2-hour block to swimming, an activity intended to counteract the effects of caloric intake. Rumor has it that numerous governing choices are deliberated upon during these aquatic sessions, which might provide some insight into the less than optimal state of Russia's economy. By this juncture, the clock has progressed well beyond 2 p.m., and an assembly of ministers, members of parliament, advisors, and journalists have convened, eagerly awaiting Putin's guidance on matters concerning the nation's administration. In Russia, no event unfolds without the awareness and input of the supreme leader, who, given his propensity for caution, maintains a firm control over every facet of the country's governance. Nonetheless, the guests find themselves in a position of patience, as they will have to bide their time for a while longer. Conventionally, the period of anticipation to meet Putin is rumored to span between 2 and 4 hours, contingent upon the immediacy of one's inquiry. Journalists especially might consider packing along some refreshments to sustain themselves during this interval. One silver lining is that this period of waiting generally unfolds within one of the Kremlin's several exquisitely appointed conference chambers. These spaces evoke the ambience of a royal court more than that of a conventional council or gathering room. As the wait for Putin continues, he remains dedicated to maintaining the one aspect of Russia that is not currently in decline: his physical condition. Thus, following his rigorous swimming session, Putin proceeds to engage in weightlifting. However, it's not bears, cars, or airplanes he's lifting, just the conventional dumbbells. Yet, he undertakes his exercise while clad in an attire rumored to cost upwards of $3,500. At 69 years old, Putin demonstrates an extraordinary commitment to ensuring he remains in top physical shape. His enthusiasm for participation in a diverse range of physical and contact sports is widely recognized, with hockey and judo among his favorites. It is worth noting that he was also the honorary president of the International Judo Federation until recently. However, in light of the Ukrainian conflict, his role within the IJF has been put on hold. During the mid-afternoon, Putin's physical regimen for the day comes to a close, and he transitions to dressing for his official duties. As one might expect, the Russian president is known for maintaining a rather conservative dress code, often opting for suits paired with ties. His preferred brands include Keaton and Brioni, although the availability of new suits from these brands has been hindered by the sanctions imposed by the EU on Russia. Nevertheless, Putin's attire won't be downgraded to a more informal choice anytime soon. His extensive suit collection is valued in the tens of thousands of dollars. Usually, Moscow's traffic is a chaotic mess, except when you possess a dedicated private road accompanied by a police escort that guides you seamlessly from your residence to your Kremlin office. Once situated in his workplace, Putin is entirely focused on his duties. His office is renowned for its lack of windows and strict prohibition of any technology within its confines, primarily for security considerations. Communication is limited to the use of vintage Soviet landline telephones, not exactly cutting edge, but undeniably effective in guarding against espionage. The initial assignment in Putin's agenda involves perusing reports from various intelligence agencies: the Domestic Intelligence Service (FSB), the Foreign Intelligence Service (SVR), and his Personal Security Unit, the FSO. Having acquainted himself with the factual state of Russia, he then delves into the narrative being presented to his citizens. A significant portion of Putin's schedule is dedicated to reviewing content published in the extensively censored national tabloids. He takes particular pleasure in reading articles that extol his virtues, a type of content that is abundant in state-controlled media. Following this, he proceeds to examine the less censored broadsheets, which are regarded as the more reputable newspapers in Russia. Lastly, Putin addresses the foreign press, a category that he particularly dislikes, due to evident reasons. After all, Putin's reputation is less favorable beyond the borders of Russia. Nevertheless, he must stay informed about global events and potential opportunities for manipulation. On occasions when his spirits are high, he takes pleasure in viewing satirical videos featuring himself, although never within his office. So if by any chance you're watching this, Vladimir, remember to exercise restraint and avoid triggering that ominous big red button that could transform the world into a nuclear wasteland. Putin adheres to a tightly organized daily agenda, divided into 15-minute intervals. This practice is not exclusive to him, as many world leaders structure their time in a similar manner, allocating slots for meetings, press conferences, and even potentially initiating conflicts. This meticulous scheduling remains consistent even during Putin's overseas trips. When traveling for international events, Putin spares no expense. His delegation typically occupies opulent accommodations, meticulously selected by the SVR and FSB, and subject to thorough security checks before his arrival. The entire facility is thoroughly secured in advance. During his travels, Putin is accompanied by a fleet of 3 airplanes. One is reserved for himself and his closest associates. Another accommodates the rest of the delegation, and the third serves as a decoy. This precaution is taken to ensure his safety, as Putin is highly cautious about potential threats that could trigger a global conflict. Consequently, he maintains a level of mistrust and ensures a robust support team is at his disposal, including servants, chefs, cleaners, and other service personnel who could prove useful during his journeys. As indicated by his waking habits, Putin is known to be a night owl. He believes that during these late hours, his mental clarity is at its peak, allowing him to accomplish the majority of his tasks. Usually, the president engages in work from his residence since he has a strong aversion to staying in the Kremlin. This preference results in Putin reserving the late hours for crucial strategic work. It is not uncommon for him to engage with his ministers and advisors discussing governmental matters and making decisions well into the night, even past midnight. In a usual pattern, his dinner choices align with the health-conscious approach of his breakfast. While he occasionally indulges in luxurious delicacies like caviar on special occasions, he also takes pleasure in simpler treats such as pistachio ice cream. Interestingly, he has even been observed sharing an ice cream cone with multiple world leaders. While many in the Western world might assume that Putin regularly consumes bottles of vodka each night, the reality is that he seldom partakes in alcohol. He only makes exceptions during diplomatic events where cultural norms dictate its consumption. As per his routine, Putin usually retires to bed around 3 a.m. While this schedule might not be ideal for a family-oriented lifestyle, it suits Russia's leader just fine. Since 2013, he has been a single man. So, if any ladies are seeking a thrilling and luxurious life, a trip to Moscow might be in order. In 2013, Putin divorced his wife Ludmila and currently resides alone with his dogs. He also has 2 daughters, although very little information is available about their personal lives, given the security measures in place to safeguard their well-being. It's probably best not to engage in any form of stalking. President Putin holds a deep affection for his trio of dogs, a black Labrador named Connie, an Akita Inu named Yumi, and a Karakachan dog named Buffy. The latter was presented to him as a gift by Bulgaria's Prime Minister Boyko Borisov, and since then, Putin has formed a strong bond with a fluffy canine companion. It is evident that these dogs experience a significantly more comfortable life than a majority of Russians. With a personal wealth exceeding $100 billion, the Russian president certainly possesses the means to provide the finest for his most devoted companions. Vladimir Putin adheres to a routine and seldom showcases his wealth to the general public. The Russian leader resides in opulence within his estate, yet he endeavors to project a relatable image for his populace. His personal security detail, a secluded and multi-million-dollar residence, and various other privileges are typically concealed from public view and remain beyond the scope of cameras. So the question remains, would you opt for Putin's secluded life with its immense riches, or would you prefer to retain your freedom? Share your thoughts in the comments section below.